Your job title here.
Okay, my name is Pholile Shakantu. I'm the Deputy Chairperson of the Elections and Boundaries Commission of the Kingdom of Eswatini.
And now we're very pleased to be here to witness these elections. As you told us, they are special and perhaps unusual elections. So for an outsider who knows nothing, perhaps you could tell us what is different and special about these elections compared with some others that some of our readers might be more familiar with.
The elections in the Kingdom of Eswatini, as an elections management body, we conduct the elections according to the legal framework that obtains in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Eswatini elections are unique in that, first of all, we are a kingdom, and therefore it's a monarchical democracy. And secondly, we operate under Tingundla system of government. If I may explain, Tingundla in modern day terminology is a constituency.
And as you spoke to us before, there is sometimes a sense within the country that the elections are misunderstood, perhaps even by people outside the country. What are their strengths? We've spoken to some voters and candidates, and many of them have been telling us about the strong links from the grassroots into Parliament. So perhaps you could tell us about the strengths of the system.
The strength of the system is that Tingundla, as I said, it is a constituency based. When we conduct the elections, it starts at constituency level. In terms of our constitution, the Tingundla system, it emphasizes on the devolution of state power from central government to the Ingundla or the constituency. In the country, we have 59 Tingundla, and within those Tingundla, they are further subdivided into chiefdoms or polling divisions for purposes of elections. So in that way, it encourages a wider participation of the population, in that every individual, whichever corner of the country you are at, you are able to participate. The community will come together during nomination, and they will, amongst themselves, nominate individuals who they know. According to the Constitution, when you are nominated, you don't canvass for the votes, you don't campaign for votes. You are nominated on the basis that you are known in the community. So the community, when it comes together at a nomination stage, they will nominate a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 20 candidates, who then compete at primary elections. They compete. When we move on to the secondary stage of the elections, which is the stage we are at now, they are now competing from all the various constituencies, and we will now have one winner who will represent each Ingundla. As I said, it is in 3 categories. The first category is Butopo. Each Ingundla has an executive committee, and the executive committee has members whom we call Butopo, and there's chairpersons of those executive committees we call Invuna Yengundla. At secondary stage of elections is the 2 categories, Invuna Yengundla and a member of parliament. So the member of parliament comes from that Ingundla, that constituency, and represents that Ingundla in parliament, and is also an ex officio member of the executive committee of that constituency. So in that way, every member of a community is able to nominate somebody that they know who will go into parliament and be Invuna Yengundla, which is the one that actually looks at the development programs of the community.
And I think it's only fair to ask that observers in the past and donor nations, whether it's the EU or the Commonwealth, their reports have been critical of this system, saying that it's under the Constitution there is the right to freedom of affiliation and freedom of expression. What do you say to those critics?
To those critics, I think it is important to understand that there is no one-size-fits-all democracy or system of government. Every country has an obligation to design or even redesign where necessary a system that will fit within the cultural norms, the traditions, and in my view, the Tingundla system of government for the Kingdom of Eswatini is a perfect fit, because Eswatini is a modern country, and at the same time it has chosen to preserve its very rich culture and tradition. In my view, the system that we have is a perfect fit for this country.
Great. I do have one more question, which I guess is just to make sure I ask the proper questions from the critics. And one of those is that the monarch here has a very great deal of power, and it's not the election that decides things because he controls much of parliament and legislation. Do you feel that the election here gives a democratic ratio of power to the people, or they vote, they send people to parliament, but really the power is with the king?
I think what I've explained demonstrates that the power is with the people, because nomination, it happens at community level. The community will nominate who they want to nominate in the various categories. And from there, the process just moves on smoothly. There is no other interference in that process. What is obtained in our constitution as well is that the head of state, His Majesty, also has a certain quota where he will nominate or appoint a certain number of individuals who will go to parliament. But that's just as far as it goes. Otherwise, the majority of the members of parliament, it comes from the people.
Excellent.
What do we do once the ballot box is closed? Do we go to one of the bigger stations? Would we be able to see them count? Because I hear the representatives are there. Like,
you are welcome because you are accredited. You're most welcome to go to any area wherever the elections are happening, and it will be the presiding officer, because in some areas you find that it's maybe a classroom, there's not enough space. So first preference is given to the candidates to actually be within that environment. Otherwise, observers and media, they're very much welcome or allowed to observe or be anywhere where the voting takes place. It is very transparent and open. There's no area where you will not be allowed, except you will not be allowed to look at the ballot whilst the person is voting. You won't be there.
Can you give me a breakdown? Because obviously we're doing all of this tomorrow. How many stations, how many people are expecting to vote, how many people are registered, if they do register, what times polling stations open, what time they close, just a general oversight of kind of how tomorrow is going to go down, the counting afterwards, just kind of that information.
The process tomorrow, which is the main day of the election, the stations open at 7 a.m. and they close at 7 p.m. And the counting is done at Ingundla or polling division level. So we may have polling stations distributed across, and they come together at closing time to count at one central place. And we have about over 335 polling divisions.
And how many registered voters, please?
Our voter turnout was very good. We do not have continuous voter registration. We registered over about 530,000 voters, and that is above half the population of this country, and about 90% of the eligible voters in the country.
And now, what should we expect towards the end of, so the polls close, and there's a limited centralization of the votes in the voting centres. In terms of counting and results, will you be making any announcements via state TV, or should we follow on social media, or look out for emails from you?
Okay. The counting, actually the voters get to know the results before us, because it's actually counted at the stations, and the results for that station are announced So the voters will know immediately, including the candidates, as soon as the counting is done. And the returning officers will then return all the information to the Electoral Commission, and we compile a report which we then issue to our local media. We publish on our national website.
It'll be on the website.
It will be available on our website once we've gathered all the results.
Great. And just for our planning, do you think we should be looking out for something on Saturday morning, or more like Saturday evening?
It depends, because some stations you have a large number of voters, and the counting of the votes will actually take longer than others. So it really depends how quickly, and in some areas you find maybe there's some disputes, so they will resolve, the presiding officer will resolve those disputes, and then they proceed to do the counting. I will estimate around maybe Sunday, when we have actually collected all, maybe Saturday, Sunday, when we've collected the results.
Women representation, are there a lot of women candidates? Is this something that women go into? If not, why not?
Women representation in Parliament, according to our constitution, we have to attain at least 30% presence of women in Parliament. And recently a legislation has been passed that if we do not attain the 30%, there will be another election of 4 women who will be selected from the 4 regions, who will then form part of Parliament. So the representation of women is very important, and as an elections management body, it has been part of our voter education to encourage women to participate and to encourage the population to vote for a woman.
But the 30%, is it mandatory to have it?
It is mandatory, it is in the constitution.
Yes.
But obviously mandatory that the people we cannot force them to vote. So, but at the same time, if we do not meet that 30% quota, then there will be a special election for women who will come from the regions.
Right.
So it will be 1 woman from each region.
Right.
But I think with this year's election, we have seen us increase, not at the level that we would have liked to see, of women being nominated and women coming or winning at a primary election level. So we do have a certain number of, fairly decent number of women who will now be competing at secondary election level. But we are not at the level where we would like to be. So once we're done with this election, our focus will be on continuing with that campaign to encourage women participation.